Hi everyone, my name is Victoria Fernandez, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about my experience with intrusive thoughts and OCD. So I typically talk about all these types of things, my experience with bipolar disorder, OCD, but today I want to specifically talk about how intrusive thoughts affect my life. And generally speaking, I've had these intrusive thoughts since I was a little girl, around 7 years old, I would say is when they started, or at least when I can remember. And it's something that kind of has really affected me my whole life in different ways at times. So kind of to have some background, whenever I was little, I used to have these very scary, strong thoughts that like, if I didn't do something bad was gonna happen. So that could be anything physical, like, or maybe just like saying a phrase. So I would say something like, may God forbid that this happens. And in my mind, I felt like by saying that, I was like saving the world. So it wasn't actually going to happen. And I talked about this example a lot, but one of the things that would really affect me was like, my brain would have an intrusive thought that I would wish like my mom was gonna die or something like that. And then I would be like, oh my gosh, that wasn't me. So I would like tell on myself. I would go up to my mom and be like, Mom, I just had a thought that I was wishing that you were gonna die, but that wasn't really me, and that was just my mind. And like I would go into the ritual of saying kind of like, may God forbid, like all this kind of stuff over and over again, because I thought that by saying that or by telling on myself, it wouldn't happen. So of course, at the time, I had no idea what this was. Honestly, I thought it was really scary. I thought something was like possessing my brain because, you know, back then this wasn't really talked about. I was really young, therapy and stuff like that. I did go to therapy, but you know, it wasn't where we are today. So this was something that kind of affected me constantly. Just intrusive thoughts of like, you know, I'd be driving, and then if you don't turn on the turning signal, even though you're not supposed to turn it at that time, then your car is going to flip and something bad's going to happen. To where something that's very real, like, you know, shootings or things that could happen. I would have intrusive thoughts to where like, you know, I'd be at a place and I'd see police, and I would like attach that to something bad going to happen. I'd be like, let's go, let's leave. And then I would say those phrases like, may God forbid. Like it was like, since I was very little, like it felt like that was like something that had more power than I do, like saying that phrase, so then like it wouldn't happen, which is kind of like silly, but like not silly, because it's something that really did affect me and still does to this day. So that kind of, you know, started happening. I didn't really understand what it was. Quite frankly, I thought OCD like was a lot of different things that are stereotypical, which for some people, yes, those types of things do affect them. But what really affected me was just these very intense and like intrusive thoughts that wouldn't leave me alone. Whenever I was in school, a lot of times it would be around grades, about, you know, things that were affecting me in that time period. And then when I graduated and now in my life today, I really do think that out of the bipolar and the OCD, I think that the OCD and intrusive thoughts are the thing that affects me the most. And some of the ways that will happen is like at work, I will have a conversation and I will say something, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, why did I say that? Am I a horrible person? I'm the worst person in the world. And it'd be like no nonsense. Like that thing does not make me a bad person. But I constantly have this fear that will persist in my brain. That's like, you're awful, you're horrible, you're a horrible person, you're such a bad person. Why would you think that? Why would you say that? Did you just make that person feel bad? Like over and over again. I will replay conversations and replay them, and then I'll ask for reassurance. So for example, I'll tell my husband, I just had this thought, and then like it's an intrusive thought, and then by me saying that, it's me trying to alleviate the anxiety, because I'm telling him, I just said this, am I a bad person? And he's like, no, you're not a bad person, or this or that, and then that alleviates it. But of course, that alleviation is very limited and it'll only work for that use case. But it really does affect me, and I will look for reassurance in many different ways. So for example, if I had a conversation with somebody and we talked about something, and for some reason I get this anxiety, oh my God, now they hate me and I'm a bad person. Why did I say that? Why did I do that? And it just like goes on and on. And I cannot go through my day without overthinking that. And then I have to like say something to the person. So I'll message them, right? I'm like, okay, like if I message them, they reply, they don't hate me, or like this, or like I'll say it again. I'll tell on myself. I'll tell my husband, I did this, I said this, I thought this, like all these types of things. And then in that moment, the anxiety goes down, right? It's like, whew, we fixed that one. And then your brain gets trained to think that by doing that, each time something bad happens, you're gonna feel better. But what I've learned recently is that it's a never-ending cycle, and it only has gotten worse the more that I feed it. So the more that I ask for reassurance, the more that I text that person, making sure that they're still cool with me, or the more that I talk about, like, oh, I had this intrusive thought, and by saying it, it makes me not a bad person, or by saying it, it makes it not gonna happen. The more that I feed the OCD, and the more that the intrusive thoughts happen. So although I was getting like this, like, immediate relief, or like what was trying to, it's like having a fire in my head and I would like extinguish it, but then it would like flare up again by something different. And so I've been learning recently, very recently, through my group, like the OCD group that we have at, where I work, that all these thoughts and the things that I'm doing are actually just making it worse. And I have gone to therapy for a very long time. So I've been in therapy, I think I've said it for probably like 10 years. But I've just recently realized that the type of therapy that I've been going through probably hasn't been helping with this, which is why I keep being the way that I am, which is why, like, it'll be like very intense periods. Like if I'm having intrusive thoughts and I cannot move on with my day, like I won't be able to work, or you'll be having a conversation with me, I'm not there because I am just thinking of every single way where like to try and make myself feel better. And it's really like, it's debilitating, honestly. And so I've been realizing that I need to get like a different type of therapist that is more, focused on OCD and exposure therapy. And I have to do the work to try and find that. So I'll probably make videos about that once I do. I think that a lot of people have intrusive thoughts. I think that's a normal human thing. Like, you might be in the stream like, oh, I wish I could push this person, but you don't really mean it. It's just like your brain having an intrusive thought. The problem with OCD is that intrusive thought will linger, and you will have to do something to alleviate that anxiety because it feels like it's so overwhelming and it's just awful. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's just so hard. And that persistent thought of I'm a bad person, I'm a bad person, I'm a bad person, like I started to realize that I wasn't the only one feeling these things, that there's other people out there, especially like through the support group that I attend, that there's other people who feel the same way, and that it's like, that's an intrusive thought, and we have to like cut it off somewhere, right? Like we have to get the appropriate amount of help to be able to do that. And it is possible, and like it is possible to have a normal life. And I know this because I've heard it from other people who have done these types of therapies, which have worked for them. So it's just something that I need to explore. Another way that this, like the OCD affects me is that, for example, I have to do the right thing all the time. I have to be honest all the time. And as human beings, like it's a normal part of life to like say a white lie or not do everything 100% right all the time. But I really, really, really struggle with that, which I think did not help in high school because I always wanted to do the right thing, and kind of like socially that was hard. Because I had like these extreme fears of getting in trouble or something bad happening, or like feeling if I tell this lie, they're gonna find out some way. So it was like extreme fears of a lot of things. Like it would also go towards like, if you would have told me when I was little, don't keep this on because the house will be on fire, I to this day will probably have that intense fear and intrusive thoughts of like, oh my gosh, did I do this, did I do that? Like I need to check that I have the keys 5 times, even though I know that I have the keys with me before I leave the house, because then I feel like we're not gonna be able to get back in and stuff like that. So I think that those intrusive thoughts like are kind of like a part of a lot of little things, and I think throughout life like they've like held on to different things I'm going through and made intrusive thoughts about that, if that makes sense. But yeah, like I said before, it's just something that I'm really trying to work on, because I understand and see now that it's something that impacts my life tremendously, and sometimes it's just like people don't understand what I'm going through and how much something can affect me. And I am very lucky to have people in my life to support me, but I think that it is time for me to get that special help, because it can be really difficult. It is not to say or diminish like being able to live a normal life, because again, I think getting help is the most important thing, and I've seen and heard people doing it, and you can absolutely be successful even with these struggles. And again, like intrusive thoughts are just our thoughts thoughts, we all get them, whether you have OCD or not. They're just thoughts that we all have. But at the same time, if you're struggling this intensely, it's so important to get help, to do research on different methods of feeling better without making the OCD worse, and to know that you're not alone. Like, a lot of people go through this, and it's really nice to feel like, you know, you're not the only person going through this in the world, that there's other people, you're not crazy. Because I definitely felt like I was crazy when I was little, and people thought it was so weird whenever I would tell them about it. But then I found out that no, a lot of people are like me, and we have it, and it's something that we can get through. It's something that can get better. We just have to get the right type of help. So I hope you found this video helpful, and along the journey as I figure myself out more and how to make myself, you know, work towards feeling better, to not letting it affect it, I'll definitely share it. And always remember that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and a bad day does not mean a bad life.